Good afternoon from New York. We, let's see, today, this afternoon, the subject, my spiritual journey, the paranormal, the message of freedom from religion, rational mystic experience. Yes. First, I want to address the early psychic darkness. You hear about going from the darkness to the light. I had seemingly paranormal things that happened. And I say seeming. I present and cannot present any proof that anything was going on. So, so it feels kind of crazy to talk about things like the paranormal, because how in the world are you going to define it in the first place? But odd experiences. I experimented with ESP, and I did some practices. You know, I remember once, I never could guess the a card. Uh, you know, I tried guessing what card was, you know, underneath, before I turned it over. Never was any good at that. Then I said, Spirit Father, show me. And in a very gruff, kind of annoyed attitude, seemingly, there was the knowledge come to me that of what the card was. And I turned it over, and it was that. That's the only time I've ever been able to guess what was on the other side of a card. And so scared to do that again. And anyway, what was that? This whole thing is a journey of my brain, okay? And that's not to say that it's the gold standard. Um, I experimented with calling out for things that I needed. One one thing, or just as an experiment, I tried to send sounds, you know, um, to a cousin, and I said, rappings at the doors and the windows. He's home alone. Um, where is he? He's under the bed, was the knowledge that I got. And, so it was, if this was real, that was a terrifying thing, I suppose, for him. Found out later that that's something that he actually experienced. And I never told him I had anything to do with it. Um, just experimenting. And another remarkable time was when I was traveling uh, from Tennessee to Michigan. Um, I had a girlfriend that I dearly loved, and wanted to get her back, even though she had stolen my bicycle when I was younger. I like I like the bad girls and boys, Yeah. Anyway, so it had been years, and my folks had moved. Their number had changed. I don't know how she could have gotten that number. But I said, bring her to me. And so I got home, and she calls on the phone. She wants to be friends. I wanted to be more. And she brings her boyfriend on to threaten me. And then she taunts me, saying, what are you going to do about it? You going to use your ESP? I hung up the phone and said to myself, I will. And this is pretty dark and not something I'm, proud of. But I called out. It was like a council of spirits of sorts. That's how my brain fantasized. And whatever this was, I'm just not saying that it's even necessarily paranormal, maybe a delusion. You be the judge. But I said, where is he? He's, and to come back, he's about to stab himself in the stomach. And then I remember gathering us as with one voice. Go ahead, you won't die. And then I found out that he had in fact been depressed and stabbed himself in the stomach. And I went back and puffed up with pride and the sense of power. I called on this council and I said, now shall he live or shall he die? And a very firm presence made it known to me clearly. And if I were to voice it, I would put it into words. It was, you have nothing to say about this. And it was disdainful. And I said, right. It just blew away any of the other influences I was using. So what was that? I don't know. But it was a weird experience. And it was a darkness in me that I'm ashamed of now. But I began a journey to religions to try and feel what each religion, that I explored, how the people felt, and if it would help me to be a better person. So this is my journey to the light. And I experienced several things. Vaishnava Hinduism with the Hare Krishnas, Sufism from Islam, and the various forms of Christianity and Buddhism. I actually lived in a Buddhist monastery for a while, practicing mindfulness and other things. And actually lived in a temple, Hare Krishnas, and lived in a household that group of people worked as a opaquer in their print shop who were Sufis. My journey began with Buddhism. I wanted to study Buddhism. I remember traveling along the road and meeting a fellow who actually was, they called him Kaidi. His name was something Smith, actually. And he was an actor. He was the evil Chinese guy in Hawaii Five, I believe it was Hawaii Five-0, very old show. Big guy, picked me up hitchhiking, asked me, where was I going? And I said, well, I'm headed I want to study Buddhism. And he says, that's great. I have a good friend who's abbot of a temple, of a, Buddhist temple, and I'll, monastery, and I'll drop you off there. I said, well, that's great. He says, do you mind if I stop and I have some work to do in my office? And I said, sure, no problem. And he took me, and I was on the other side of this desk, and I remember sitting there, and I was maybe 20 years old. I looked around at all of the paraphernalia that he had, and he says, you have questions? And I said, yeah. What religion are you? And he said, I'm a Taoist. And I went, okay. Looked around some more, and he says, you have more questions? And I said, yeah, what does a Taoist worship? And he looks at me and leans across the desk, and I think, oh my God, I'm done for. And he says, a Taoist worships nothing. And I went, okay. So, he dropped me off, and the Honorable Venerable Dr. Thich Thien An at the Buddhist temple there. I'm sitting across from him at the monastery table where they all eat. And he says, what did he say to you? And it was really weird. I was, 20. So he really kind of traumatized me a little bit. So it just burst out of me the same way he said it. And I just says, a Taoist worships nothing. And he goes laughing and laughing. Tell my friends. That was an interesting experience there. The guy was amazing. Just showing up at different times and giving you a lesson, and he was very quiet. And when he would do a sermon, it would be brief and quick and to the point. Something I've never managed to do very well. I remember I was meditating through the night, and this guy who got up early in the morning and went to bed early at night walks by doing kinhin, walking meditation from, I believe, Japan. And he walked by and turns and looks at me and smiles and walks on. Spooky guy. Kids loved him. He did amazing things. I heard that there was a guy that was strung out on drugs, and everybody says, oh, don't approach him, whatever. And he went, well, that's the story goes. And he went out and brought the guy down, calmed him down. Just a kind of magical kind of figure, and everybody really looked up to him. Poor fellow died of brain cancer, unfortunately, later. Not to believe, I won't go into that. He was quite an influence on me. And when I left, he showed up again, because I was just going to sneak out, just bye. And he showed up, and what he said was, "Where are you going?" And I says, I'm just traveling. I'm doing my research." And looking into different things. And he says, "Will you take the Buddha with you?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm mostly Christian, but yeah, I'll take the Dharma with me." And he says, "That's good. You take the Dharma with you." So I did. I experienced, I'll just do highlights. I met Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishnas, when he gave a sermon that truly humbled me and gave me a kind of religious experience, where he talked about a very proud Brahma, ruler of a universe, ours, I suppose, with 4 heads, it's symbolic of his power. And he talks about this Brahma going to visit the Supreme Lord, who he called Krishna. And this Brahma shows up at the door of the castle of the Supreme, and knocks on the door. Comes a servant, opens the door. He says, "Who are you?" He says, I'm Lord Brahma. I'm the Lord of the universe. You tell Krishna that I'm here to see him." So he walks away. He hears him coming back. Cracks the door open. He says, "Yeah, come on in." He says, "Come on in." So he goes in and has a nice long conversation with Krishna, and they're getting along swimmingly, I suppose. And then he says, "Are there really oh, that's right, I missed part of the story." He asked him, "Which Lord Brahma are you?" And he said, "What do you mean? I am the Lord of the universe, I mean, that's it, right? Top honcho." And yeah, and then he goes to see Krishna, and he says, "Are there really more than one of me?" And Krishna goes, "Well, yeah, many, Would you like to see some of them?" And he goes, "Yeah." So they would come in, and symbolic of their different levels of power and, I guess, prestige. They had more than 4 heads. They had a lot of heads, 1,000,000 heads, billion heads, representing, I suppose, perspectives. And at the end, Lord Brahma says, "Forgive me, I didn't know." And that impacted me very strongly. I mean, I felt very humbled. Felt like he had cut through the pride that I held in me, and found a humble spirit. And I started to cry, and I felt a warmth coming up from inside, and it's kind of weird kind of appreciation, and it's quite amazing. Um, I felt very humble, and that was my experience there. I had experiences in Buddhism where I would experience you know there's no permanent unchanging self or soul, and I got that. I mean, I experienced it, and I could get some of the koans and just laugh and appreciate what they were trying to say. And with this, there was a deep humility that I experienced, and that didn't do me any harm. That's kind of more one with the universe kind of concept, but a very small fragment of that universe. As Carl Sagan says, we're the universe knowing itself, but of course each individual just, yeah, we're it's so insignificant, like Brahma felt there, and going, wow, it's a real statement mythologically about, how we should be humble. That was remarkable. The Sufi experience was basically they wanted me to do a practice of being utterly and completely quiet. And I'm like, wow. About 2 weeks of that. And humorously, I was working with a fellow that I had hitchhiked with to this center, and and we were moving furniture and things, and and I was opaquing at their printing shop, different things that you do to survive in a religious organization, different kinds of work. That's what I did there. Anyway, there's a lot of funny stories involved with that as well, but I'll cut to the chase. It was I experienced it, and the quiet was there, and again the surrender and the trust, inshallah, it's, God willing, So I'm like, well, okay, good enough. But I was asking myself questions all along the way, and also went to various Christian organizations and things. Must have been baptized like 6 times. Each time I go, "Are you a better person?" I'm going, "No, not really." And so then I had these other experiences, and I asked the same question: "Are you essentially any better person?" And no, I'm not. Not really. It didn't. None of this did the trick. I'm still the same flawed individual, and I mean, I wasn't looking to be perfect, but a little progress, please, from the darkness. Didn't experience that, and then I encountered spirit-filled Catholic Christianity, and that was weird. That was very, very weird. We were told that, well, if you make up sounds really seriously, they'll probably deny this. I don't know, but they're gone now. They've disappeared. But they say if you make up sounds and you have faith, and well, you might become a tongue, speaking in tongues thing. And they would all practice this and sing it together and things, and I found that interesting. And I remember doing that. And they said, well, if you speak like Jesus and you have faith, then, just be bold, So, if you speak love, well, that's the will of God. And if you practice, then maybe it's going to be Jesus. And that sounds a little extreme, but, why not? And I had some amazing experiences there. I really did. And I would seem to, when people would ask a question and so on, and we had people who would prophesy. And I was one of them. And remember one time when we were looking for like a lesson in healing. It was like a round of people prophesying. It went in a circle. Some stranger came in and sat in the circle, and it would be a teaching that would go along in a circle, and he got caught up in it, and he was doing it. Freaked him out. He left because he was adding to the instructions, whether good or bad. I can't even remember what they are now. So it couldn't have been all that great, but that's what happened. And the things that happened with me was people would ask, and we would try to, hear, for them. I guess a lot of the New Age people call it channeling, but for me, I experienced it as this incredible, that humility again, and this extreme sense of love, a very strong, powerful, loving presence speaking through me. And what would come out would be a perfect match supposedly, to events in this person's life. And this was the general pattern, although there were other things that happened. But the general pattern was that, it would begin a lot of times with, probably because of the culture I was in and whatever, I am the Lord, or I've always been with you. And it's just, it would flow out. And it would say, when you were a certain age and whatever, and this happened to you, I want you to know I was with you then. And because of this, you have this blessing today. And the weird thing is that they would acclaim that this was perfectly what happened. And others around them who knew them said, yes, they have this blessing, they have this skill, this talent. Remarkably, one individual would pray, and I would feel a pull. So I went and saw him, and one day, and I says, "You've been praying again?" He goes, "Yeah, I think we should try to hear the Lord." And I went, "Well, okay. Me again?" Because, yeah. So I said, "Well, all right." So I started to speak, just loving things. And along the way it was like, and inside my head, it was something going, a notice. And at best I can express it, it was like a knock. And I said, "Tell him this." And I said, "Well, I thought I was telling him." He said, "No, tell him this." I said, "All right." And out flowed, when you were, I think it was 3 years old, and you reached up for that cabinet, and it was for I forget, it was a cookie or a piece of candy. Evidently, it was correct. And it was then that I showed you my glory. And he went running from the room, and of course, the first thing I thought was, well, this was nuts, and it was crazy, and never doing this again. This is, don't get me into this no more. I'm done. And he comes back, and turns out he'd never told a soul about that, never shared it with anyone, according to him. So I was always thinking, do I know somebody who knows this person and whatever? And it was always no, because I couldn't explain it away easily. So he says, he never told a soul. And when he reached for that cabinet, beautiful colors came flowing out. He became a painter, a very skilled painter. It was just things like this that influenced me. It got a little old, because this happened a lot, actually. And but in the very beginning, we were told, go straight up. Each person, don't be stacked together like rebels, leaning on each other. Just go straight to me. And so I'm going, this is not what's happening here. So I went to a basement and went into prayer, and I said, hello, this isn't working out like you said. And I'm not perfect enough to be in a situation like this. And the message came to me where this teaching of inner communion first began, and then was further developed. He said, came to me, as he. It really feels like you're a person. I don't know. The brain is amazing. Whether it was a real person or something else, I don't know. And I'll never say that, I have evidence for this, or this is a fact in any way. Maybe there's a way to explain it away. I haven't found it. But said, tell him this. And it was a way, 3 dialogues that could be done. And he says, and study that. I said, all right. It had an amazing impact on a few people. It just immediately insights and connections, healing connections within themselves. And wow. So I don't really know what to make of that, except to keep working on it. And I continue to work on this for many years, more than 50 now, trying to understand how it worked and how it connected to brain research and to forms of meditation and other things that I'd learned. And it seemed to be all of those things that I'd been learning fit into a picture which I have been presenting on this channel. But I'm a humanist, and in terms of with the common notion of God, agnostic, I guess. I don't believe. I don't believe. I just can't believe that, Objectively, it makes, what are you even saying when you say God? It's like 1,000,001 different definitions for it. So to me, God moved as an experience out of the religious conceptions to something that you experience and you don't really understand what it is. But in try it, and pointless to try. You just, it's an experience that you get from certain kinds of practices. That's when I just, studying it, I realized these are practices of forms of empathy. That's what's the result of this. And the nonverbal things that sprang from my research into the Vedic yogas, that was a kind of awareness and a kind of empathy with one's own infant mind. And then studying Arthur Janoff and his positions, and experiencing Ruth Carter Stapleton, Jimmy Carter's little sister, long ago, and at her ranch called Holabita. She did a marvelous thing where she would work with people, having Jesus walk through their life with a comforting figure, and so if they had a troubling memory, she would go into that, and she called it the gift of inner healing. And she would have them go through the memory again. It sounds like some of these trauma therapy approaches. But Jesus imagined with them, letting them know, hey, you lived through this, you're okay. And so that I was kind of impressed with. I was impressed with a lot of things that Art Janoff had to say. Big fan of his basic theory. However, I differed from his point of view in some ways, in a lot of ways, actually. I think the things that we present on the channel are the best. It connects to mythology and helps us understand the religious mythologies and experiences. And it's about a communication in your brain. Because look at it. Everything in your brain you experience, it's your reality is filtered by your brain. Everything in you is a product of the need for species survival, and that survival and that the needs that meet those requirements for survival, these things evolved. This was very plain to me, and to me, the problem seems to be damaged faith and love, and the cure is to unlearn helplessness around the giving and receiving of love that one has experienced because of trauma, times of helplessness. And that helplessness is a kind of damaged faith and love, and separates you from your needs and your feelings, because they became painful, too overwhelming in the circumstance that you were in. And the brain jumps in and gives something symbolic which comforts you and helps you to survive the trauma. And healing that is a process of unlearning that helplessness. What I discovered is 6 practices which I talk about on the channel, and we will teach these things perhaps in the next Zoom call coming up. We'll see, or maybe sooner. So let's see, where am I here? Yeah, let's move into the larger philosophy involved. Philosophy is the increase of empathy and awareness in our inner dialogues and experiences, and in our exchange with other people, which I call inner mind communication, and or a form of it, a distro for the Linux guys out there, a distro of that. It's very impacting, and it uses a comforting approach, which instead of the medical approach of looking for trauma, you don't look for it. You look for what helps you feel better, and you have to include the negative and the positive things in order to truly feel better. And what breaks down those symbolic defenses is you can't come from an act of will directly, but from taking these different perspectives, it breaks down the symbolic defenses slowly and puts you in touch with the needs you were helpless to experience and to express in the past. So that goes into a pattern of healing, but that's not the entire philosophy. What we want to do as the larger philosophy is to expand the love flow, to express this teaching, and in later presentations we'll go into more and more details about this. So I hope this is something that you can appreciate, and I'll end with my Irish blessing, which I love to give. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain falls soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand, or her hand, or its hand, however you see it. And I love to say the word namaste at the end of my presentations, because it's an honoring of the love flow and the potential for it in all of us, and the fact that we are in fact the universe knowing itself, and we are also our brain knowing itself. And more on that on another occasion. So that word is namaste, and I'd like to encourage you to make a great day today, because you know you can, and learn empathy and practice it. So, both within and without. And yeah, and do your due duty to support democracy. That's part of the philosophy that comes from this, because in democracy you find the opportunity for empathy to evolve. It's a respect for the individual that is absolutely necessary. And healthy democracy is important. Because of this, certainly I am a backer of Joe Biden, and because he is a very empathetic guy and represents this philosophy very well. And so, namaste, and I hope you do indeed, in any small way, be a hero of love to yourself and others in the story of your life. Namaste.